Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend, Publish, and Lead, and welcome to episode 218, Funding Emergencies. I made this episode because so many of our clients are coming to us in the current context of spring 2025 with concerns about losing funding, having funding on hold, due to several government initiatives and just the uncertainty about how to go to places like the archives and make sure that maybe a grant you applied for and got, are you actually going to get the funding, and those kinds of concerns. So I wanted to put together a quick emergency episode about that because this is something that we're now, as writing coaches, hearing about every single week. And so I want to talk about 4 different strategies that we are recommending to our clients to make sure that they're taking advantage of all the scholarly development funding that they might have, and just some ways to think strategically about how to use any that you get or how to fight for some that you are promised and don't have yet. So let's start talking through some of those. So the first one I would say, for number one, would be to, if you can, and you have funding available, it's already been promised to you, it's sitting in an account somewhere, it is accessible in some way. I would encourage you as much as possible to prepay for anything that you can, because many of our clients have funds that were promised by different organizations. Some of these are through the federal government in the US, some are not. But in some way they've already been promised these funds. And so I would say the first thing that I would try to do is use any time, any funding that you have right now before there's some way that it might be frozen or stalled in some way. So for example, one of our clients had a grant that was for $2,200, and it was through one of the organizations. I believe it was the National Institute of Health. And one of the things that happens with that is that that organization has given the funds to her university, and they're sitting in a pool, but we don't know if they could draw them back, or how she's going to be able to make sure that she gets them. And so one of the things that we talked about doing was she was allowed to use that funding for all kinds of things. Like, she could use it for conference travel, she could use that for writing coaching, she could use that for, if she wanted to, for special like software or analysis tools. And so one of the things that we talked about, and this is why I'm recommending prepaying, is that she was able to use almost all of that $2,200 in the span of about a week by buying the things she needs right now rather than waiting, by booking a hotel and then doing something on hotels.com where she prepaid for the hotel already. She prepaid for a rental car. So as much as possible, she did all of that, turned in the receipts, and I'm happy to report that I just found out this morning that she's been reimbursed from that funding. So prepayment's a great way to go. If you're interested in writing coaching with us, we do have many, many clients that are now prepaying. So if they know, all right, I'm promised some funding from somewhere, I'm going to go ahead and use that funding right now before it's gone. So this is kind of a related context, but certainly many universities globally are struggling with funding. And so funds promised to you, maybe you were promised to have $1,000 in professional development funds this year, and now you're coming to find out your university is in a budget crisis and you're only going to get 400. One of the things that you can do for yourself is prepay whenever possible. So go ahead, register for that conference, get that receipt, get reimbursed, and go from there. So if that's something that you're interested in with us, of course, you can email me, Christine at defendpublishlead.com, or just go to defendpublishlead.com and schedule a consultation. We do free 30-minute consultations for anyone that is a new client for us. But also, if you want that 30 minutes to just strategically talk through, how can I make sure I'm getting my funding? That would be one way to do it. So prepay anything that you can and get reimbursed as soon as possible would be number one strategy. The second one would be asking for small things. So we certainly have a number of colleagues that are struggling at smaller universities that, maybe are struggling, and you're just not going to get even $500 in professional development funding, but they might pay, for example, for a textbook and academic authors association membership. They're one of our sponsors. Yes, I know I pump them all the time. They're our only sponsor at the moment, and I love them, but they're also my cheapest professional membership. So if I had to dump everything else, I had barely any funding, I would go for that, because what's coming through there are regular monthly webinars and all the templates and the tools and all the free things that I can do with that one organization. So I would look to see what's something that's a smaller amount I can ask for that's going to do the most good. Is it that you need the maybe a more advanced version of AI? And you just want to be able to, maybe pay $20 a month to have something a little more robust. Or that you want to go to this one conference that's regional and the conference registration fee is $100. I think one of the things with academics and funding is we tend to be all or nothing about our funds. We either want $3,000 or it's not enough money to do anything. But we all know that that's not true. And there's lots of ways to use money strategically. At Defend, Publish, and Lead, I just worked with somebody that literally had $92 in their professional development money account held. And they just said, hey, can you do something with that? What could I do with this? And what we ended up doing with it is we basically portioned it out for a writing hour of coaching and we set up some strategic plans. We just use that time to talk through. So that might be something you think about. Two other things. Third would be if you can look for private sources of funding, I would do it at this if you're in the US. I mean, really globally, this is a problem, but in the US right now in spring of 2025, looking to private sources for funding is probably a safer bet. That doesn't mean, they're always going to grant the funding. Many of those organizations are also suffering from some of the trickle down effect of not being able to tap into their own resources. But I would say if you can find some private things to apply for maybe grants that you're looking for, that might be a safer way to go in the current context. And then speaking of grants, for number 4, many of us have a grants liaison on our campuses, and I know I don't use mine as often as I definitely should, but it might be time to say, to make an appointment with that person and see if they can do anything for you where they help you find sources of funding. One of the things that a lot of scholars are doing right now is cobbling together different funding resources in order to have enough money to do the work that we want to do for our scholarship. So I just want to throw that out there that really, you've got some other resources, but, I think maybe the closing message of this particular episode is that I don't think waiting is the safest route to go at this moment. If you've got funding anywhere, I would use it because you don't know if you're going to lose it. And, I wish it was not that way. I know this is something we talk about with our clients all the time, but just being very strategic and careful to make sure that you're getting the resources that certainly you deserve, but just to make sure that you're able to use them to get your projects going forward. Many of you do archival work, or you want to travel to a certain location to do like a sample, or something like that. All those kinds of pieces. I might look at all the strategic ways you might be able to do that and get yourself funded. So hopefully this helps. We're happy to talk more. You're welcome to email me at Christine at Defend, Publish, and Lead. I always answer questions about this kind of stuff. So if you've got kind of a troublesome situation and you want to ask us about that, we're happy to do it. Or you can set up one of those 3 free 30-minute consultations. Happy writing this week.